Hi everyone, I'm Ken from Crypto Trading KS. If you're new, welcome, and welcome back to our regular community. Let's run the numbers. Bitcoin currently trading at 31,513, down 1.83%. Ethereum currently trading at 1879, down 5.19%. Let's have a look at the Ethereum tokens. I'd just like to let you know that everything I do for you is free. Twice a day, 7 days a week, I share my experience as a full-time crypto trader. My goal is to assist you to be more of a financial blessing to yourself and those you love. I always do my best to read all the comments across YouTube, Facebook, Discord, and Twitter. Wow. We've got a really active community and I love the conversations. Discord is incredibly good. There's a lot of very, very high quality content. I'd just like to thank all the people on Discord. You're doing an amazing job. Just so much sharing. I had a private message on Twitter where someone reached out to me and said, Ken, can you please describe the R2 value? And I said, R2 value? You're not talking R2D2, are you? And he said, no, the R2 value associated with linear regression. And I said, there is no R2 value associated with linear regression. R2 doesn't exist. It's R squared. It's called the coefficient of determination. And he said, oh, okay, I heard it referred to as R2. And I said, well, that's okay. Yeah, I'd be happy to explain it. Okay, now we'll dispense with R2 here, but the R squared value, called the coefficient of determination, it aims at creating a line of best fit. You see all these dots in here. If those dots were all along the line, the R squared value would be 1, which means 100% of the variability around the line is explained by the line. If the R squared equals 0, there would be a scattering of dots. The line would be in a no relationship position, just horizontal. The important thing to understand, this is sales versus advertising. This positive relationship, positive correlation between sales and advertising is what we would expect. Now, how would your stats lecturer want to explain R squared to you? Your stats lecturer would probably want to throw up some math like this or like this and make really complex examples. You know, the truth is it's not complex at all. It's really, really simple to understand. It is just literally the variation between the points above and below the line. We're just simply trying to keep that value as low as possible in terms of the variation or the variance and minimizing those errors. That's really what it's all about, nothing more. If you'd like to get into it more, you can look up Wikipedia coefficient of determination, which is R squared, not R2, not R2D2. I know we love Star Wars on this particular channel. Now, you'll probably see a lot of math in here. That's okay, you know, it's a mathematical concept. The concept is really exactly as I explained it. It's just trying to get the line of best fit. That's it. We can make it as complicated or as simple as we want. That's all it is. It's really, really simple. Okay, let's have a look at Bitcoin's technical analysis. Bitcoin currently trading at 31,564. We can see, look at this strength. It's actually getting away from this support line. It's hugging, giving it a cuddle. This downward structural resistance line, it's cuddling it at the moment. That is showing strength. We also see this upward support line also showing strength. Now, why does it need so much support? Because it needs lots of cuddles, because it's got to get over this nasty structural resistance line at 32,414. Everybody loves support. Now, when it can fly above this line, it has the next one at $35,000 to attack. I had such fantastic comments that I read in the comments section of YouTube and across Twitter and across Facebook and across Discord. I love them. Keep them coming. I'm here for you. That's my job. I look at it, You ask the questions, I do whatever I can to answer them. A lot of people said, Ken, what are you planning to do? What am I planning to do personally? And what could I advise other people as we come up to this peak here? And is it better to hold? Is it better to sell? And what would I do? Now, I don't know your financial situation, so I can't give you advice because it's really dependent on so many factors. But I can tell you what I would do. I would be trying to sell at the top. Now, you know that we cannot predict tops and we cannot predict bottoms. We can just move with probabilities. There are several characteristics of a top that I'm looking out for. Whenever it occurs, I'll be looking out and I will be sharing that information. The thing that I will do, I will get out as close to the top as possible, and then by the falling knife, it will go in different waves to get to here. I will be seeking to accumulate as much as possible in the capitulation event. Now, don't forget, your taxes are a big issue. Sometimes it could be better for you just to buy and hold. It really depends on your situation. It depends on your outlook. It depends on so many things. My personal opinion, if I have $100 invested here and I know it's going to 15, I'd prefer to cash out the $100 and buy $100 worth down here and watch it go up. But that's just me. Now, let's get into Bitcoin's properties. I want to explain this a bit more because I think it's really, really important. The important things to understand: fixed supply of 21 million, deflationary. It's mathematically programmed. It's decentralized. It's outside central government control. It bypasses the financial system. It can bank people without bank accounts. And a lot of cryptocurrency projects are trying to do that. It's very beautiful. This is the real key here. It is the foundation of the Internet of Money, also called the Internet of Value. It permits trustless commerce, smart contracts, and the ALTS build out on the BTC, the Bitcoin cryptographic ecosystem. It's a global medium of exchange. It can store value. It facilitates low-cost global transactions. It is an incredible thing. It is an exponential apex asset class. I wrote this article and popped it on Medium. Why Bitcoin is misunderstood and why by experts, and why do experts regularly fail to predict the future? This is really, really important to understand. So, as you know, Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies are the foundation of a new monetary financial system. They're the next internet, the Internet of Value. All those properties I just read out. Flight. Now, we take flight for granted, but you know what? It was developed in 1903. For thousands of years, people were trying to become airborne and failed and failed and failed. It's really interesting that Lord Kelvin in 1895, flight became possible in 1903. In 1895, Lord Kelvin said, I can state flatly, which means without any doubt, that heavier than air flying machines are impossible. That's a really key word. Now, who is this Lord Kelvin guy? He may not understand flight or science or anything like that. Far from it. He was the president of the Royal Society in London, an incredible institution. He was the first British scientist to be elevated to the House of Lords. That's an incredible honor. You may have heard of Kelvin used in temperature. That is an accomplishment of Lord Kelvin. Incredible person. He was involved in the mathematical analysis of electricity and the formulation of the first and second laws of thermodynamics. He knew what he was talking about in science. But I created this term called Kelvin thinking to describe how an immensely brilliant mind can say something that is impossible that later turns out to be more than possible. Kelvin thinking is really, really problematic. There's a lot of Kelvin thinking, which is simply, this is impossible thinking. It's happening inside Bitcoin and cryptocurrencies. It has happened in every single invention that the planet has ever known. It's really, really important to know that. Here, Werby Beaumont in January of 1900, the present generation will not fly in the next 100 years, and no practical engineer would devote himself or herself to the problem. Now, that's just a bit of fun. Enter Haldane thinking. Haldane thinking is all about an existing thing, but a misunderstanding of how it will be applied. Lord Richard Burton Haldane was Secretary of the State for War in Great Britain. He was Lord High Chancellor and leader of the House of Lords. This guy really was incredibly brilliant. There's a thing called paradigms. Weird spelling for a word, isn't it? Paradigms. It's called paradigms. What happens, people think a very specific way and they will not permit any different ideas. They literally reject them. Now, this is important. I've highlighted this in red because I think Great Britain, the United Kingdom, is doing exactly the same thing that it did to flight with cryptocurrencies. It's getting really hard on them when it should be embracing them. Once the ruling power over the world, Great Britain was surpassed by the United States of America because America accepted and developed new paradigms. When we think about Kelvin thinking, it's impossible. Haldane thinking can't be used in practical. These methods of thinking are very, very problematic. So what's a paradigm? It's a distinct set of concepts or thought patterns, including theories, definitions, research methods, standards, for what constitutes a legitimate contribution to a field. Legitimate means it's proven by consensus. You know the funny thing with innovations, they're not proven by consensus. They take time to develop, like Bitcoin has. Okay, now what is innovation and what is invention, and how do all these things relate to each other and of course to Bitcoin? When something exists, an idea, this little dot, an idea exists in terms of an existing method of thinking, it's called an improvement. And people say, great idea. When it goes out to the edge of the paradigm, it's like an innovation, and they say, maybe, I'm not sure. When it becomes an innovation, it's branded like, oh, this is impossible. But then you can get highly discontinuous inventions like Bitcoin, which are science fiction, Ponzi schemes, never happened, $0 value. They're just so far outside the existing paradigm, existing way of thinking, that nobody can believe that they can happen. What I'd like to explain, innovations do not break existing paradigms, but inventions do. Inventions break existing methods of thinking. They're so outside the boundary of what people understand. That's why they reject. So what are the 6 stages? We think about an idea, it's worked on because it's impossible. The invention occurs, like the Wright brothers doing the flight, a Kitty Hawk. It gets adopted, but it's slow for adoption. We're in this phase 5 here, phase 4 here, adoption. Then metamorphosis. Wow, what is metamorphosis? Glad you asked. I put a little thing here. What metamorphosis is explaining really the alt ecosystem. Bitcoin would be the grandfather or the grandmother of them all, but the alts are the children. They're building out, sparking wave after wave of innovation and invention as well. Then what happens? You remember CDs? You remember LP records? They're now collectibles. How about a horse and buggy? That's kind of a collectible. But collectibles were once mainstream in terms of adoption. Just a little bit of information. The airplane took literally 2,500 years to develop. I've got a little bit of info, more information on that down below. Now let's talk about Bitcoin. It's really interesting to note that physical, tangible coins and notes are about 7% of money. This is like 93% is digital. When we print that money, when governments print money, there are enormous costs. Like you can see, printing, security, so many things, distribution, storage. Moving the money requires high levels of security. When the money is moved out from one place, the printing press, to a bank, for example, the banks need high levels of security. This costs a lot of money. And even if you're thinking about gold and silver, this is a picture of the Bank of England vault. How cool is that? Wouldn't mind getting in there and just, borrowing a couple of bars. Gold is fun. Now, when gold takes to the air, I should come back and say, I don't believe that. Unearned is returned. Stupid idea, scratch that. Okay, getting back to it. When gold is transported, wow, this is really, really interesting. When central banks buy gold and they want that gold remitted to them, imagine the process. Imagine the cost. Now, enter crypto, Bitcoin and the babies, the other cryptos, the ALTS. Look at this volume, $18.1 billion. This is like just from now in Bitcoin volume over the past 24 hours. Ethereum, 13 billion. Tether, 35 billion. Binance Coin, 1.2 billion. Cardano, 1.3 billion. XRP, 1.5 billion. This is a lot of money floating around the cryptocurrency ecosystem. It's really important to understand this is all occurring at the speed of light. It doesn't require logistics. The security is in the mining network over the transactions. And don't forget, those transactions are cryptographically secured. Depending on what kind of work is done, proof of work, proof of stake, there's a lot of different methods. It doesn't need planes. We don't put the Bitcoin or Ethereum on a plane and ship it somewhere. We don't put it in an armored truck. We don't get delayed. We don't have to wait 2 months for it to arrive. We pay a fairly modest transaction fee. I hope this is explaining something incredibly fundamental about the disruptive nature of this invention. The human race is literally taking to the stars. Spaceflight, colonization of other planets is on the horizon. When we get there, everything will be digital. I believe that another evolution will occur. We've seen the internet take the physical or tangible and turn it intangible. The Bitcoin and cryptocurrency revolution will take money and turn it digital. Then there will be another evolution to follow that. I believe that consciousness, I'm talking hundreds of years from now, will be digitally transferable, which means immortality. If you've ever seen Altered Carbon, it is an incredible series, mind-blowing in its nature. If you look, I think that's really why I love science fiction. I'm always seeking to unearth the next big thing. I'll just do a very quick summarization. We're here at the moment. We look at the KS model and compare like psychologies. We're not seeing any blow-off tops or blow-off bottoms. We're about halfway through. We look at the number of transfers to exchanges. We're not seeing a spike. We're seeing the opposite. All looking good. No peaks. We've got one claw here. We expect 2 more, as in past cycles, from the realized cap hodl waves. We look at the hash ribbon. We had the China miner issue, which created that hash ribbon, and also the COVID pandemic, which really created problems. I think all we've done is normalize the cycle now. When I say normalize the cycle, we had a bit of a blow off here. All that's happened because of the excess liquidity that was pumped into all systems around the world. We've just normalized the cycle. We're back and getting ready to rock. Even though there was excess liquidity, we didn't see that euphoria as has been present in past cycles. We can also see reserve risk is at a very good state, very close to being one of the safest places. We can see the Puel multiple or the pool multiple, it's recovering as the hash rate recovers. One critical thing we need to do is all markets are interdependent. We need to check the stock market. We check the US market because it is so huge, disproportionately large compared to all the other markets around the world. We look at the global business cycle and we can see that the US market is in early stage recovery. About 4 or 5 days ago, I mentioned this is the NASDAQ 100. I had a gut feeling on this divergence. This is the price of Bitcoin in the gold. The NASDAQ 100 has got a very good support level. I said about 4 or 5 days ago that I believe what will happen, we'll get a natural wave in price. Prices always moving up, then down, up, then down, up, then down, up. Of course it's got to come down. It's just natural. I believe it will hit support and keep on going. I drew this line in. It's just an indicative line. I don't expect the price to obey this line. I just believe it's going in that general direction. As an estimate, it's been pretty accurate so far. What I see is the money, I believe this, that the money will come out of the stock market and go into crypto. And we can see this leveling off in crypto. It's very, very interesting. And it's so far holding. We look at the S&P 500, the futures are detecting that sell-off as well. I just want to explain one thing. The reason I drew this line in here was not to try and accurately predict price, but it was to try and inform each community member that this is coming from a basis of probability. When the newspapers and the media sources and YouTube gets a hold of this price reduction, guess what they're going to do with it? It's the end of the world. It is not. It is simply a retracement, normal, healthy price action. I just wanted to keep everybody aware, so I drew that line in. You see this sell-off here. You see how Bitcoin went up here. That's very interesting. In March, February to March, the NASDAQ 100 sold off, but Bitcoin rallied. I believe there was a rotation in money from the markets into Bitcoin. I believe exactly the same thing will happen now. Looking at the Russell 2000 futures, they're weaker, as we would expect. When the markets rotate like this is totally what happens. Dow Jones showing weakness. Facebook at support. Amazon coming back to support. Apple doing really well, a long way up there. Netflix retesting that support that was once resistance. Let's have a look at Google performing really well. Microsoft performing well. Let's look at Bitcoin performing well. It's consolidating down here. Let's have a look at Grayscale Bitcoin Trust. 2.66%, not bad. Increase while everything is coming down. This tends to affirm the idea that we have of money flowing out of stocks into Bitcoin. And of course, we would expect that same behavior in bonds. We'll see if that's the case as well. Potentially gold as well. Let's have a look at MicroStrategy. Got a bit of weakness. Galaxy Digital has weakness. But these stocks are very, for example, Galaxy Digital, when the Bitcoin price recovers, these stocks will pump. Let's have a look at Tesla. Doing well in an uptrend. Let's have a look at coin shares, physical Bitcoin. It's hugging this resistance. Voyager Digital, got a bit of weakness in there, no doubt. We just present the facts as they are. Purpose Bitcoin ETF, just like Grayscale, just like the others, it's hugging that resistance. It's not showing weakness, it's showing accumulation. Square, coming back to support. Marathon Digital, just a bit weak, but these things don't mean it's breaking down because we know what's driving things. Coinbase Global, showing weakness. ADE, Bitcoin Group, as well, showing weakness. QBTC, hovering around that resistance line, seeking to consolidate. ARC Innovation, we can see just a bit of weakness. ARCW, Silvergate Capital, you can see how they're all following each other. Hive Blockchain, Riot Blockchain, Bitfarms. Now, what happens when they all start to rally? Look at Argo, 17.5% increase. This actually makes a lot of sense compared to the past previous price action. Let's look across the defensive sectors. We're always seeking to see what is happening. Gold has this resistance, got above it, now selling off, retesting that line, seeking to turn it into support. This is interesting. Silver is showing this weakness, continued weakness. What about the VIX? Had a spike in the fear gauge. How did the dollar go? It's trying to get above this resistance. It's broken through this resistance, turned it into support on a retest, coming up to the next level of resistance, seeking to turn that into support. Really interesting thing here as well. The DXY, the dollar currency index, and Bitcoin have basically moved in the same direction. I know a lot of people say they move inversely. This is why it's so critical to look at the charts, let the charts speak to you without anybody seeking to interpret. You just interpret. It's the best thing to do. Let's look at treasury bonds. We can see treasury bonds strengthening. Yields are falling because they move inversely. 10-year and 30-year, but still quite solid around that support line. Let's have a look at transportation. We can see some weakness in the transportation sector. Could be because of the Delta virus, or it could be just its correlation with major indexes. Let's have a look at utilities. Utilities, typically a defensive sector, has reached up and been rejected by this resistance. Let's have a quick look at the airlines. Airlines coming down, finding support. Check out oil. Oil is starting to consolidate around that support line, which is exactly what we would expect it to do. Let's have a look at light crude. Again, same, different channel of support, but it's being held. Each day, I just go over this quickly. This is casebitcoin.com/charts, this particular thing. What we're doing here is to see the relative returns of different assets. For example, S&P 500 or different investments. S&P 500, gold, Bitcoin, Bitcoin is a proxy for crypto. If we look at the percent gains year on year, we see S&P 500 12% over the past 10 years, gold 1% over the past 10 years, Bitcoin 117% per year, year on year on year for the past 10 years. If you think about life like a fund manager, you say, where should I put my money? This is looking pretty attractive, especially since the stocks are pretty much overstretched at the moment. Price moving in a wave, you always expect flows of funds to be moving around. I just like to talk really quickly about central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. At the present, we've got the central bank, they print money, goes to a bank. The bank promises services, etc. And the end user grabs the money and just buys things. In the future, we'll have the central bank creating a central bank digital currency and people just interacting through financial intermediaries such as banks. Banks will still be there, but they will change in the nature. If the central banks decided to wipe out other banks, that would be a huge mistake, and the banks would never ever permit it. Banks are very, very powerful legal entities. Some of the richest companies on the planet are in fact banks. We can see a very different future. As we take to space and start colonizing other planets, such as Mars, there will be no room for paper. Everything will need to be digital. It's not like they can get an armored truck to go from Earth to Mars with money in it. That's just insane. It would take forever. Everybody would not be able to eat. Okay, so you can see, it's just the way that the world is heading now is completely different. It's like we're on the verge of a completely new society. It's amazing. It's an amazing time to be alive. I would just like to point out, if you see a head and shoulder pattern with people calling for a bottom, be very careful. I don't believe those people actually understand the nature of crypto, Bitcoin, and cryptocurrencies. We should always, when we look long term, Bitcoin and cryptos obeys a very specific 3-phase cycle, each halving. The concept of a mathematically protected high getting violated with normal price behavior, a black swan is different. If we have a black swan, that's different. The mathematical protection goes away, but there is no estimate on the horizon for a black swan. Everything is normal. Now, why do I say that? Because we follow the markets in such depth. For example, the Nasdaq 100 Refinitiv is estimating earnings increases of 65.8% quarter on quarter. The Federal Reserve Chairman Jerome Powell has said there will be no tapering. Inflation's temporary. There's no change in policy stance. The Senate Democrats are proposing a $3.5 trillion spending bill. Everything is going according to plan. The only potential is this Delta strain coronavirus. Now, we have, as a society, dealt with it extremely well. If the money printers keep on going burr, that's only beneficial for Bitcoin and crypto. It certainly is not a risk to us as an industry. I hope you found the content useful. Everything I do for you is free. Please be aware of scammers. We have free groups on Discord, free groups on Facebook, on Twitter, and of course on YouTube. I love to read your comments. I do my best to read every single one of them. I often can't read everything before a particular video because sometimes the comment comes while I'm doing the video recording. These things can take a while to prepare. I will always do my best to reach out and give you a like and a heart, and that means why you're the best. Thank you so much for your comment. I've read it, I acknowledge it, and I'm going to do something about it. If you ask a question, I'm intensely interested. My whole focus is to support and help this community with their knowledge base to become more of a financial blessing to yourself and those you love. If you would like twice daily updates 7 days a week on price movements in the crypto market, please consider subscribing to YouTube and joining up our free groups. We have a beautiful community of people. They're just wonderful. Always remember, crypto is volatile. Please prepare yourself for the best and the worst case scenarios. Reality will likely be between them. Stay safe out there. Take care, and see you next time. Bye for now.